We're going to be covering how to prepare for the UKCAT, looking at the UKCAT homepage and the website and see what sort of help is out there, and of course preparing so you can do your best on the UKCAT on the day and get through to med school or dentistry, and of course get a really good score in this UKCAT even if you are doing it for a practice run. So we're going to go to Google, and of course we've typed in UKCAT, fairly simple, and it's the first thing that comes up. But have a look, this is a misnomer. You've got the UKCAT preparation course. Don't go into that. You want to go to the UKCAT home. It says right here www.ukcat.ac.uk. So on some computers, it might show you as the first thing that comes up in Google. Sometimes you might have other adverts for UKCAT courses, depending on how many times you've searched this term. Anyway, so now we're on to the main page. So, just as a reminder, the UKCAT has got all the dates on the right over here. So you've got the registration opening on the 2nd of May, so you can start registering for your test at that time. I would say leave your UKCAT right till the end, but not too much towards the end, so you can start preparing for your personal statement meanwhile. Or if you wish, you can always do the test early, get it out of the way. But if you leave it later, that means you can actually have more time to prepare for it. Registration closes on the 19th of September, so you can actually keep practicing and not register until this date. The last testing date is on the 3rd of October, and the application deadline is 15th of October, just like everything else for UCAS. Right, so as you can see, it tells you registration and booking details, preparation, bursaries, official guide. There are some websites by the actual UKCAT website, which you can have a look at. Videos, UKCAT, the Twitter page. You can always have a look at Student Room as well for any type of advice that other students might give for preparing for the UKCAT. We'll look at about the test first. At the top here, you've got the test day, preparation, registration, about the test, all of these other stuff. But we want to know what the test is about before we even think about registering for it. So it tells you right at the beginning what's the UKCAT, who should take the test, etc., etc. Test centre locations, again, you don't really need that straight away, but that is something to look at when you're thinking of registering. The test format is very, very important. We will look at that. And then it's got the other segments of the test as well, which are also quite important to look at. Anyhow, so let's go to the test format. As you can see right here, it's got all the segments that you need, and it tells you the total amount of time that you would need for the exam. Of course, if you fall under the category of UKCAT Sen, then you've got a bit longer, you've got about 30 minutes longer. But today we'll just cover the UKCAT and the normal UKCAT. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, there are 3 little stars next to a decision-making segment. That is because this is a new segment that's been added in, and this will be applicable for all 2017 candidates and here on. So definitely worth looking at, especially because I haven't done this. You should probably go and have a look at this specifically. But a lot of older textbooks, if you've got any from eBay, have a look at what years they were covering. They might not have enough help on the decision-making segment, so it's important to go have a look at this segment. Situational judgment test, this is another one, similar to decision-making, I suppose. One of the only elements of the entire test which are actually directly relevant to medical school, or dentistry rather. This is one test that you will be doing throughout medical school and throughout your career. And although some universities don't really look at it very much, if your university does look at it and does count it in the final count, then practice this. Practice this a lot, in fact. So other segments include the verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and abstract reasoning. Me personally, I found the verbal reasoning the hardest because it's got a lot of items, including the big chunk of text that you have to read, and you only have 22 minutes for this. So ideally, that's looking at 30 seconds per question. And I don't know about you, that sounds pretty quick. So you most likely will not get through all the questions, and definitely spend more time in the earlier segments so you can actually get higher scores in the earlier segments of this test, especially the verbal reasoning, the first few questions. And then when you're nearing towards the end of these 22 minutes, use these full 22 minutes, by the way. When you're nearing the end of these 22 minutes, then I would advise you to maybe skip through these questions, select at random so you maximize your chances of getting a good score in this segment. Quantitative reasoning, on the other hand, this is something you can get good at simply by getting your math skills higher up. If you've not done AS or A-level maths, then this is something to be considering, depending also on your GCSE math scores. Get really good at this by practicing lots of maths questions outside of the UKCAT, so mental maths tests, on any type of maths questions really. They do ask quite tricky questions, and your mental arithmetic needs to be quite good at this. Abstract reasoning, again, one of the few segments that you can learn to get quite good at just by practicing on IQ style questions, etc. So we've already looked at the test format. Now it does say at the bottom here that there is a minute of instructions in between each UKCAT segment. So that's potentially 1 minute of break time you get between each segments. Don't rush. Use these entire 2 hours to maximize your chances of getting a good score. Use this break time to give your eyes a rest. Your eyes will get tired and your concentration will falter, especially for 2 hours. So take that 1 minute gap that you get for instructions to, have a drink, possibly. But ideally, I would say take a drink in with you before you even go inside, so you have that ready. Also, eat well before you go inside. All of that stuff. Anyhow, so we've looked at test formats. Of course, you can look at all these other segments as well. There's individual segments on the side right here. So it tells you more about the test, etc. We've already covered those. If you want more information on the individual segments, go look at that on the left over here. But we want to start preparing for the test. So you go on to preparation, preparing for the test. So this gives you more advice on the preparation. And as you can see over here, right here, it tells you that you don't need any longer than 30 hours of preparation. And this is literally the amount of preparation done by the highest scoring respondents to our survey. So essentially, you only need 2 weeks. If you say doing about 2 hours a day, no longer than that, because you're going to burn yourself out, 2 hours a day for 2 weeks before the test, you're good to go. But of course, it's always worth doing those extra skills like maths, which is literally dependent on the more you do, the quicker you get at it. Mental maths especially, you need to be good at that. Your times tables, for example, go over those things. Abstract reasoning, those are the 2 segments that you can really get good at just by practicing outside of the test. Student room, again, a good place to go to. It says right here that mathematical skills are something you can definitely get better at, and this will impact the quantitative reasoning besides your actual practice on the actual UKCAT test. Anyhow, so now we go up to here, this segment right here, which says the candidate preparation toolkit right here. If you press on that, it takes you to the next website, the next page. It takes you here, and as you can see, the official guide is right here. You can press on. It's a PDF file. It opens up on a new window right here. Now, this official guide essentially contains everything that the website contains, but in more detail, and including extra tests. So if you want, you can always print this out, but I wouldn't advise it. I would go to the contents page and just skip through most of these bits because you don't really need it, but it helps to get yourself familiarized with the format of the test and all the little bits and etc. really. So as you can see on the contents page right here, it says practice questions. This is a golden opportunity for you to practice as many questions as you can. Of course, you can Google more questions and try to find more questions. There are plenty of websites that provide free questions. So we're going to skip through to page 34. Before we get to the actual test questions, there are some test strategies over here. These are also on the website, but if you find it easier to look at paper, this might be a good place to stop and have a look at and have a read. This tells you general strategies as well as more focused strategies on the particular segments, so like verbal reasoning, and if we skip to the next page, decision making, quantitative reasoning, etc. It also tells you about the calculator and other advice on the individual segments. So we will skip to page 34. This is the practice questions. You've got all these practice questions here. As I did say, you can print this out and practice it, but remember the actual test is going to be on computer. So it's worth getting used to staring at a computer for 2 hours, maintaining your concentration on a computer, not having somewhere to scribble on, etc. You will, however, get a scribble pad. It will be a laminated paper essentially, and you can scribble on it, but don't get too used to that. Get used to actually focusing on the exam. And as you can see, this has got lots of test questions right here. So now we'll go back to the main test here, and it tells you decision making tutorial, question tutorial. So you can actually go on to this as well. And this is another PDF which is going to be very helpful. This is a question tutorial for decision making. Remember, this is a new segment, so it's worth having a looking at. So this gives you lots of advice. I believe there are some questions at the end as well. Do have a look at those. So this, I think, page 19 of 31 of the question tutorial for decision making segment, I think this page is quite a useful page to look at. It tells you, remember to select the strongest argument. Don't base your answer on your own beliefs. This is applicable for both the decision making segment and also situational judgment. Remember, you want to seem as politically correct as possible. And think like a doctor. Don't think as yourself. Think, what would a doctor do? What would a medical professional do? What would a really idealistic person do? And always think as generously as possible.